separately, and we'll get going here. Thank you all. We really appreciate you joining us tonight for our one of my favorite topics, absolutely, which is cannabis in the media. That is what we do at MedicateOH, and we're delighted to have some people with us who also are reporters in cannabis. And I know tonight you had a little opportunity to speak with Gerald, and we're delighted to have him back on our program to talk more about something else that he's involved with, which is really common in the cannabis industry, that people have their folks have their hands in a lot of different buckets. So we're delighted to have both of you all on tonight, as well as our students. Thank you, and Bonnie, as always. Thank you for joining us. And I will go ahead and get started, and I'll give you a little introduction, and it may be a little longer tonight, and I hope you'll indulge me because, like I said, it's my favorite topic. So the Latin root of media is medi, or middle, and I think it's an apt description for one that creates media, who is a mediator, or one who finds the middle ground. It's no wonder that so many journalists like me fall under the sign of Libra, known for traits of seeking justice and balance. Media comes in lots of forms today. In our modern world, that typically means digital media via laptops, your tablet, or most of us are on cell phone devices most of the time. But Gen Xers like me grew up in households where our parents read a real paper and ink newspaper that was delivered to the door each day, and it was ruined if you spilled coffee on it. Soon after, we got TV news, and that turned into cable news, and then the internet came along, and everything just sped up. Our media options are vastly wider and far more diverse than they were just even a few years ago. What media we choose to use and follow plays a huge role in our society, and whether we realize it or not, media biases shape our worldviews, help us understand the law, our medicine, the arts, and permeates our decision-making every single day. Today, social media, more than any other type of media, has changed the way we receive information. While social media can be a powerful tool, it's also rife with misinformation at every next wrong click. And that could be an absolute whole episode on its own. And it's one of the things that we teach in our Cannabis Writers Workshop, which I'll tell you about a little bit more later. I've worked in various forms of media throughout my seasoned career as a journalist, a blogger, a health reporter, editor, content creator. I started as the editor-in-chief at my college newspaper in the mid-1990s at Northern Kentucky University, and I've been writing and publishing ever since. I've created enormous amounts of content for numerous purposes over a nearly 30-year career so far. It's been intriguing to me to learn how people receive news and what compels them to act upon what they've read. The cannabis industry, for me and my MedicateOH team, has been the most difficult industry to navigate with respect to reporting. When we started back in 2019, Ohio's strict advertising rules made it unattractive for much of the industry to even participate in what we were offering, what we were doing. And the federal status of cannabis made platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads really frustrating. And I know Anthony also would say, we'll tell you about YouTube as well, being really frustrating for media outlets like ours that just want to report accurate information, but we get banned and shadow banned over and over again. Even as a nonprofit, we worked through this muck, though, and 4 years into it, we're finally making headway at reaching the citizens who need timely and accurate information about cannabis as medicine in Ohio. We adopted a nonprofit model, taking inspiration from the likes of National Public Radio, or NPR, as you probably know them. And they work on a nonprofit news model. MedicateOH today is a proud second-year member of Lion Publications, and we publish about twice a week on MedicateOH.com. Our reporting is centered around the Ohio medical marijuana program and using cannabis as medicine here in Ohio. Tonight we'll talk a little bit more about the work we do at MedicateOH and why we do it, but first we'd like to highlight some of our fellow cannabis media reporters covering the industry and the medical marijuana program here in Ohio. So with that, I'd like to introduce, I would like to introduce Anthony Riley, and he's with Ohio Cannabis Live. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
I apologize for any background noise. I'm currently in school, and there may be some students in the background making noise.
All right.
Basically, I just want to give people a little bit of background for those who don't know me. My name is Anthony Riley. I'm a disabled in the Ohio Medical Marijuana Program or Medical Cannabis Program. I have a traumatic brain injury. I was one of the first people purchased in the state's program. I've had my card since December of 2018. That was a little bit before they actually started sales. And in the very beginning of the program, I realized that there was a disconnect in getting information to the general public in regards to the state's medical cannabis program. From that, I started Ohio Cannabis Live, which really just started out with me just doing YouTube videos about things I thought might be useful to patients and others, and then it just branched off into trying to cover all the different aspects of the state's program, including the state board of pharmacy meetings, changes to the laws, and eventually the movement towards adult use, which tried once before and it failed. I think the biggest reason why we had so many problems legalizing it adult use before was the same problem we're having with the medical program, and that's the lack of education and information being spread out to the public in an easy way for people to digest. As she alluded to, there's been a lot of restrictions for people who are trying to create information, content, or educational content or journalism when it comes to the cannabis topic, especially, as she said, Instagram, Facebook, and I've learned YouTube. I've created over 500 videos on YouTube, and through that process, I learned that it's very difficult to talk about cannabis in a public space. It's very challenging to put your face out there. There's all kind of risks associated with doing this. Being disabled, being on disability, and not having any employment made it very challenging for me as a small little guy to get out and into the cannabis industry because I'm personally broke. I have no money. I pretty much use all my credit cards for how Cannabis Live running. And because I realized getting feedback from people, the general public, that this information is important. So I found out about MedicateOH, I found out about Ohio Cannabis Report, which you'll hear about here shortly. That gave me some relief because for a while there, I felt like they were just going to make it so hard for everybody that everybody would just give up. So I'm really pleased that, we have these platforms like Clubhouse that we can talk on openly and freely without fear of some type of punishment or restriction. And I definitely believe in the free press, and I believe that we should be able to talk about cannabis, whether it's medical or recreational, on the open without fear of getting banned, as she mentioned on social media. We've all been banned numerous times on Facebook and Instagram for just trying to provide information to the general public and to patients. And, I hope that we can have many more discussions like this. And unfortunately, the thing that really frustrates me the most is that a lot of people don't even know the clubhouse exists. And I wish there was a way that we could help spread this a little bit further, because I think that this system is a little bit easier to work with than some of the other platforms. And I think that we should continue to do these cannabis in the media events together, try to get more people involved, because the more we can have a discussion, the better things will be. And something I'm trying to do right now is organize community events all over the state in partnership with whoever wants to work with me, try to have educational events where people can get information. People can get their card if they need to in a way that makes them feel comfortable and safe, and in a way that is professional and educational, and it kind of helps with this stigma that marijuana or cannabis is some big bad thing, when we all know here, everybody in here knows that this is the answer to really everything that we have a problem with. The environment, health issues, I could go on forever, but I don't want to take everybody's time away. But I do appreciate Gabriel giving me the opportunity to have this platform to speak to everyone here. And I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody might have. And if there's no questions, I'm going to turn this over to Mr.
Yeah, Anthony, I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the stories that you're working on.
One thing that we're working on right now is trying to create a documentary series that basically shows people exactly how products are produced in the state's program. We're doing this through a video production. We're also going to be doing this through blog posts. We're working with some students here at the Ohio Media School and some students with Hocking College to create some additional content on my website that will basically just provide more information about different products. I'm also in the process of creating a helpline people will be able to call, get questions and information about the state's program, in addition to any resources they may need as far as finding food pantries, or they're looking for help just with saving on their utilities bills. So those are a lot of things I'm working on. That's not all of them. But those are the ones that I'm really working on. And another thing that I'm also focusing on is trying to figure out how we can bring need for patient rights to the forefront. Too many stories about patients getting pulled over and, they're being told they're being charged possession even though they have an active card. According to the patient rights that currently exist, this person should be protected in some way. And, we definitely need to continue to bring the stories about limited access, the issues with quality, and just the issue in the fact that people are not being educated properly about the program. It's running people away. And I think that's really kind of breaking story, is trying to keep giving people the positives of the program, more or less trying to write stories about everything negative.
That's a really good point, Anthony, and those are all really, really good points to be bringing up. I think that the key is that when we when we act as sort of a watchdog on the program, we can get too focused on some of the negatives when in fact there's really a lot of positives that we want to that we want to put out there, and that we want patients to know that, hey, there are a lot of restrictions still, but there are a lot of benefits to becoming a patient. And I appreciate the way that you have consistently been reporting on this, just as we have for several years now, and to do so at at a personal cost. And it's the same way with me. It's a personal cost because we care so much about this particular topic that we're in a way obsessed with it, and that we're obsessed with the, with getting that information out and finding ways to do it despite all of these restrictions and bans that have been placed on us. So I really appreciate your reporting, Anthony, and that's and tell folks again how they can get to your website and what they can do to get involved. I know you've got some students with Hocking College you're working with too.
Yes, that's just something we just started doing. Some interns here with some students from Hocking College who need to get lab hours for their cannabis class. I know there are maybe some other students who may need lab hours and doing cannabis-related activities, so there's still some room left. If you want to get to more of my information, you can check out my website, www.ohiocannabislive.com. It's all together, no spaces. You can find me on social media under OhioCannabisLive.com. You can also just look me up by my name. I'm pretty much on all the platforms, including Reddit, under Ohio Cannabis Live. So I'm pretty much everywhere under Ohio Cannabis Live, but I'm also everywhere under my name as well. So you can look me under my name or under Ohio Cannabis Live. I'm also on LinkedIn too, so if you're looking for me there, I'm also now on there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're gonna go ahead and shift over and talk with Gerald and Broderick and Anthony. If you can hang on for a little bit, we may ask some more questions too. I know you have to get back to class here in a bit. But we did want to thank you for joining us and talking a little bit about the work that you're doing.
No problem. Thank you. Honored to be here. I'll try to hang on there as long as I can.
Awesome. Thank you. And Gerald and Broderick, we would love to talk to you both about Ohio Cannabis Report. If you would take us away with how you started that and how it's going.
Yeah, thank you for the platform and having this and inviting us as always. So again, my name is Gerald Moore. I just talked to some of the and then that's Broderick. Broderick might be in and out. I think he's at an event right now. I just pinged him to come in. But we started the Ohio Cannabis Report. Oh, first I'll talk about how me and Broderick met. So when the program first started in about 2019, when I got my card, Broderick was working at Terrasana, which was one of the first dispensaries to open in the state. And so he became pretty much my, my bud tender. He was somebody that I would ask questions to about what products were good that were coming in, what he was familiar with. And so we really gained a friendship and a rapport starting there. And then we've just been friends ever since, which is the beautiful thing about cannabis. And so, throughout the process, neither of us are journalists by nature. I'm married to a journalist and a news anchor. But personally, I'm not a trained journalist or somebody that I would say is a reporter. But coming from where I come from, I just knew that there was, like Anthony said, we needed more information. We needed more stories. We needed more insight to cannabis culture and the things that were going on, because I just felt like there wasn't much information out there, So we started the Ohio Cannabis Report. Well, I was telling Broderick he should tell people his story. I was like, man, you got a powerful story. You know so much about cannabis and the products. I was like, you need to start talking because you could be somebody that's, a leader in the industry. And so it took me about 2 years to get him to really start to use his voice. And then we started the Ohio Cannabis Report. And we really just started it out of frustration. I see myself as a disruptor. I've played on, big platforms such as ESPN and stuff like that. I watch my wife on the news, and I'm like, well, we have these platforms where we can go live whenever we want to go live. We need to be talking to people. And so that was kind of how we started. And we figured we'd interview people from the industry, interview patients, and just have community dialogue and conversation. And it's really grown into something that we now are like, well, I guess we got to strategize, and see how we want to attack it, because I think we come off, as very knowledgeable, but we can also be very disgruntled in the process. I know Gabby and Anthony said there's some good things in the program for sure that we have to highlight. But we also are we're bootstrapping Ohio Cannabis Report. And so we do this out of the kindness of our hearts and wanting the community to benefit. We know that there are people that are in the cracks in the alleys that aren't being heard or aren't being seen. And so we figured we'd create a platform to really give those people a voice and a platform to stand on. So it's been very intriguing the last few months because we've had some great conversations. We've met people from all over the country that have checked into our lives via Instagram. And so we are still, in the processes of planning out, our strategy and what we want to do But we are on YouTube at Ohio Cannabis Report, Instagram. We have a TikTok, and you can find me on all those platforms as well. And, but yeah, I'll give it to Broderick and let him talk about a little bit more how we got into it.
Good evening. Hey, Gabby, I didn't hear the exact question, but would you mind?
Yeah, hi, Broderick.
Hello, everyone, and hello, Gabby. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm actually out at a little launch party, so pardon if the background noises.
No worries. Yeah, we would be at that launch party if we weren't on this. But yeah, we're so proud of Black Buddha Cannabis and the industry night they're holding, and I extend our hugs from far away to you all up there.
We appreciate the love. Definitely appreciate, like I said, we appreciate this opportunity. Sorry, 1 second. Taking off.
Sure. So Broderick, yeah, you can just tell us a little bit about how you got started with Ohio Cannabis Report.
Okay, yeah. So, Ohio Cannabis Report, I was hearing Gerald speak. Him and I, we met in a dispensary for sure, and him being a patient. I mean, I'm a patient as well, but I have sickle cell anemia. Let's start with that. I'm a patient too, sickle cell anemia. I've determined cannabis is a much better quality of life, provides that than opioids and then some of the other options out there. So once I determined that, I got involved and was at one of the first Central Ohio open dispensaries in Sarasota, and I was able to meet a lot of cool, great people. I even met Anthony out there. I met Anthony, caught him doing this little media setup, and that's how we actually first met too. And I congratulated him and told him I respect his efforts and hustle, and that we needed more people doing that. And then I also met Gerald at the dispensary, and I was able to him and I were able to with both of them I was able to establish a solid relationship. Gerald and I continued to just chat for a while, and as he mentioned, it took some time to get developed, but I like to just me, but being in the industry with a lot of rules and regulations. What's up, bro? Yeah, straight back. You have to follow certain rules and regulations, and it's like a fine line, and it sucks because we're talking about medicine that helps people all walks of life, and I've never seen a plant or a medicine that helps so many people, but be so strict and regulated for people to talk about it, discuss, and educate. So it's been very frustrating to see, especially working on the insides, seeing numerous people really need this plant in different forms that are available to have a better walk of life. How y'all doing? And it was just crazy to have to be silenced in a lot of ways, or kind of alter the way people are providing information. So after so many long conversations and just strategies, discussions, we found a way to all right, how can we provide something for the people or talk to the people, but still create provide value information to the people. And when we realized how the value and importance of social media, we're why not create something on that? And obviously we're dealing with, like Gerald said, we're not professional journalists. We're working, are doing our best to get better at it and sharpen our skills. But we were so determined and, fed up with just being fed misinformation or not, all the true facts all the way. They were let's see what we can do to change that, or let's see what how we could at least provide our best efforts to change, to help provide a better way for people to access information and true information, stuff that they could really value off from and make gain from it. Even save money or just teach themselves how to be better at wellness and opportunities. So that's kind of how it started. And I like social media in a lot of aspects are free. So it's free. So it's just another way too for us to be able to express ourselves without being able to, or without having to like financially cost ourselves too much. We're still working and building, trying to get things set up and done. Straight back, man. Good to see y'all. Safe. And I apologize, y'all. Anyway, so Ohio Cannabis was basically formed from that, just socializing and creating a friendship and a bond. Like, we want to help people really get information that they deserve and learn how they could better themselves in their wellness in the industry. And in a lot of ways, we might be like just direct, straight cut, raw, like just that's just kind of the way things are, to be truthful. And it's just something that we are trying to continue to grow and always willing to help work with other people and help shine a light on their stories or their platforms or journey in cannabis as well, like including yourself, creating this platform for people to be able to come together and hear about different cannabis entrepreneurs or just cannoneers. I like to call people that anybody that's involved in starting creating things that could grow into bigger and better things in the long run. We're all out here creating future educational platforms and media platforms that'll really help the masses normalize this plant and maybe deschedule it. So that's kind of, I hope I take too long, but that's kind of how I got began.
Thank you so much for that, Broderick, and we appreciate you doing double duty there at the event and also helping tell the story of what you're doing with Ohio Cannabis Report, but then also Broderick is with Benna Leaves and he's out doing all kinds of things. So we appreciate what he's doing, and we really appreciate what Broderick and Gerald are bringing to Ohio Cannabis Media, in addition to what Anthony's doing. I think what's so important about media in general is that we all respond in different ways to different types of media. For myself, I like the kinds of things that I create, which is like articles, that are, search engine optimized, 700 to 900 word articles are kind of my favorite way to really explore a topic. But I also really enjoy podcasts and I also enjoy YouTube. And there are some types of media that I don't respond well to. And I think we all go through that, right? And I think that, one of the most interesting, places that we found is this type of media that we're on right now in Clubhouse, because it allows us a space to kind of be faceless, even though our faces are on little icons on the screen. It does promote a more open discussion, and the cannabis media really found it useful for that very purpose, that it allowed us to be a little bit more open and to talk about some of the topics in cannabis that we couldn't really talk about without fear of getting banned on other platforms. So it's been a really interesting time for us as content creators in the cannabis world, and it's been great to have so many fellow people that are doing the same thing as us. Anthony, Broderick, and Gerald with their programs. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention Mary Jane Borden of the Columbus Free Press, who is our most venerable journalist in this space and has been writing for that publication for, I believe, about 30 years. And she was with us last semester, and she writes a monthly column that is republished in MedicateOH every month. But there are so many content creators. We also kind of get into that quasi influencer area when we talk about social media. But the important part of what cannabis media is doing, and I think here in Ohio, where it's so important, is that we're trying to portray cannabis in a light that will help further legislation and legalization efforts. It doesn't help us if we portray it like alcohol. That's a vice as compared to a medicine. And it doesn't help us when we espouse things that maybe aren't true about cannabis, or that we don't entirely know. Some of the medical claims that are out there today, they need to be backed up. And we learned in a previous episode that those claims, and Mary, actually, who was your speaker, she told you a lot about that, about how, you really have to look at the research behind these medical claims to know what's true. And, as we are learning more about cannabis and how we report about it, it becomes more important as we try to develop content that's centered around cannabis as medicine. We also have to kind of filter out content that is designed just to market and sell cannabis, and perhaps in ways that maybe we're not comfortable with. So it's a really interesting new frontier of medicine, and that is where we as journalists reporting in this field will continue to navigate and to try to kind of kick our way in areas where we've been historically shut out. And we're just on the verge of some new potential in terms of legal ability to get things like CBD ads on Google. So we're just kind of pioneering into that field, and MedicateOH is happy to be on the precipice of learning about how and where and with what we can advertise. So it's a really new, interesting time. And also it's a new time for the media that's involved. Let me ask right now, if we can get, a question. We actually have one already. For Gerald, do you know if team doctors are able to recommend cannabis for pain relief as an alternative to opioids? That's a great question for Gerald.
When it comes to the NFL, they don't have anything that is allowing them to really remotely even consider cannabis. The other leagues, I know the MLB, they just did a partnership with Charlotte's Web for CBD. And typically, if it's a medical, it all has to be determined if it's a medical state, because I would assume, like, if you're in Ohio, you have to go to a recommending doctor and recommend medical cannabis. So the actual team doctor would have to have the ability to recommend cannabis, if I'm standing correct. So for Ohio pro athletes, I would say if their doctor is able to recommend it, they would be able to do that. But I don't know how that would look in terms of the regulations of the specific sports team. So if it's NFL, MLB, NHL, soccer, all the leagues are different. So, and all the doctors, organizations are different. So that would be something that I would have to look into. I have had meetings with groups of doctors here in Ohio, and a lot of them won't even touch cannabis because many of them are afraid to lose their practice. So that's one of the biggest issues I would say in our program is you have doctors that aren't willing to get behind cannabis as a medicine, and oftentimes those same doctors might be the ones against it. And so I know when I was living in Upper Arlington, and most of the suburbs in Ohio have a moratorium against cannabis. So I was in Upper Arlington, and there was a doctor who was he was a trauma surgeon, and we had 3 people for cannabis legalization and removing the moratorium in Upper Arlington. Then you had 3 people against. And so the guy that was against, he was a trauma surgeon, and you're just like, why wouldn't you want, your patients to have any form of medicine that could help them? And so it was, when you get into the weeds of it, you realize that it's a deep rooted thing. We have to educate doctors because most doctors aren't even educated about cannabis. Most people, if you go to your primary care doctor and you tell them that, you consume cannabis, they might not want to be your doctor anymore. So there's a lot of things that, we have to get to. And so, yeah, I don't, that's something that we have to, that's the weeds of the weed is doctors' recommendations and how does that look? How does that work? I chose Dr. Bridget Williams to be my doctor. She's a African-American female doctor. She is vocal about cannabis. She's an author. I'll be in her book that's coming out in the spring, Courage in Cannabis. But, finding a doctor that, gels well with you and your lifestyle, I think is important. Professional athletes, I think, have to be more vocal too. And again, that runs the risk. If you come out as a player and you're vocal, especially in NFL, that means you could get cut. They're not going to cut Kevin Durant. He's one of the best basketball players in the world. But in football, we would need, if Tom Brady came out and said that he was consuming cannabis, things would change. I know J.J. Watt, he just retired, but he said he can't wait to consume cannabis. But if we can get a major superstar in the NFL to come out and, go against the status quo, I think things would move faster. But, they have those guys, afraid, honestly, because the league average in football is 3 to 4 years. Most people don't get their second contract until, after 4 years. So everybody's trying to squeeze out as much money as they can. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Awesome. Thank you. And, much love to Dr. Bridget. Jody also mentioned that. We love Dr. Bridget. She's great. Dr. Bridget Williams, Green Harvest Health. Shout out to her. And thank you for that. And then another question that came up, and I'll just kind of open this to whomever wants to answer. Although I know a little bit of an answer if nobody else wants to, which is how do medical marijuana doctors make money? Anyone want to take this?
Well, they're making money now by overcharging people in our program. Because again, when you have a state as massive as Ohio, and then you have these little pockets, and the lack of information, there's no standard. So, there's no pricing standard. So you have some people I'm hearing paying $200 to $250, maybe $300 for a recommendation. I've heard some people that get a recommendation for 3 months and have to re-up every 3 months or every 6 months. Some people have a year. But then there was something online, I think that a program was charging like $69 for my medicine for a renewal. So the doctors, you got to think about it. It's capitalism. It's business. So the doctors make money off of getting a patient in the door. So if I charge you $200 for 15 minutes of time, the state price is $50, and then everything that I make over that $50 is really cash plus my time. And then if you can get them to come back as a patient for, maybe life coaching or something, selling products. So I would say that's how the doctors are making money off of recommending Ohio. I think doctors need to be more well versed. If anybody can market and advertise cannabis, I think it's the doctors. And I think, if our doctors were most doctors, again, aren't necessarily the creative brain. So marketing and PR and advertising is a very creative thing. So one thing I'm thinking, I'm like, why don't we see more doctors on billboards, with a catchy cannabis slogan, not even using, cannabis, because they can do it. I think it would work, because billboards still work. But, yeah, the doctors are making that money off of, getting the patients to come. And if they're charging you $200, you gotta think the state is only charging you $50. So that doctor's making $150, and then whatever time, labor, and that would be how they're making money, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Hey, everyone in the room. I'm Nicosi. I'm from the Northeast. I'm from Rhode Island, but I work in the cannabis industry in Massachusetts. Gerald, I have a question for you. So, is Ohio straight medical right now, or is it medical?
We're all medical.
All medical. So it's very interesting kind of hearing some of the stories about trying to get your, medical card and stuff. I think what, is going to start happening soon in certain states in the Northeast, especially places like Ohio, where places like Rhode Island, Massachusetts, they have a program where, first time you get your cards, $100. Second time you got to do the re-up, and it's by a year basis. You'll pay $75, and then there becomes a point where it kind of stabilizes every couple of years or so. So really, I feel like where Ohio's trying to capitalize right now is on the medical market. And, you have places like, I'd like to hear, I forgot what one of the places of the dispensaries that, I think, the other brother, Roderick or Roderick is,
Roderick,
worked at. And really, I think the biggest thing I can say working in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, MSOs that come in to, play like a Sunnyside Cresco, the Botanist, Ascend Wellness, they all have, different business schemes and owners when it comes to, what they're trying to do with business. A lot of these startup companies, especially in places where, much to your point, Gerald, too, there's such a large landmass in Ohio right now that literally saturation in the market comes to every market. So like in Massachusetts, I'm looking at the little dispensary retail from 31st, 2022. Massachusetts has 364 retailers. And let me find Ohio.
That's 100. And they just put 70 online, I think, that are supposed to be coming online. So, yeah, I mean, we have people drive in an hour, 2 hours just to get to a medical dispensary here in Ohio.
Wow, that is crazy. Do you think it'll be wrapped by next year? Adult use?
I mean, it feels like the energy is moving that way. I think it's supposed to, if it's not passed through the House, if they don't pass it, it goes to the vote to voters in November.
Okay. And
so,
I mean, honestly, that's awesome. And the thing that me being in Rhode Island, there's only 6 dispensaries, but quality that's come out of Rhode Island being, I think, one of the first 10 medical states has always been really at a high bar. So with Massachusetts, I think they've only been medical since 2018 or and they went rec. I think it was 2016 for medical, and then it was 2018 for rec. Really the cannabis industry in Massachusetts is very young. Still, but overall, as far as staying on the topic with like media, especially me being like a wholesaler now, I used to work in the hydroponic sector, the industry, troubleshooting gardens, EMs, and type of rules and really the biggest thing in Massachusetts right now is you can actually build a portfolio off of your media and get different types of marketing, managing media stuff. So like that will definitely come soon in Ohio. So you guys are definitely having the right talk right now, because that'll more occupations are going to start to build, like branding in the state of Ohio will start to happen. There'll be certain mom and pop brands that become better, that become bigger, that will have a sell through, and that's where you have more of the pure wholesale industry happy. But the botanist always comes out with quality flower. Ascend kind of has this like, hey, we're going to flood the market with these flowers. So really, mom and pops against the MSOs, the multi-site operators. So as long as you guys stay tried and true to what you're doing, it'll be good. And definitely check out Ricky Williams' brand, the Heisman. It's all over Mass right now. So definitely for the like you were saying, being an athlete, the advocacy for veterans will come with more of these companies, and once adult use hits the state, that'll be the change over into the industry. Then things definitely start to ramp up.
Yeah, thank you, Nikosi. Appreciate that. Yeah, and I completely agree that our media right now is really preparing, and then what we're doing is really the early stages of sorting out who are the MSOs versus who are the smaller craft cannabis, who are doing the best practices in the industry. Who has sustainable cannabis, which products are customers liking, what are they responding to? And all of those things are really important as we develop into, what could be a adult use market as soon as later this year. So our media is becoming, it's interesting coming from where we came from, because of the fact that we've been kind of hiding in the shadows, not on purpose, but we will see this as adult use potentially comes to Ohio, and certainly as federal legalization conversations continue, our work will become that much more important. But
No, what I was gonna say was, even much to that point too, like the real turn with like, but what happens when adult use happens, right? Is there'll be mom and pop brands, there'll be minority brands, there'll be veteran brands that will start competing against, so there's revolutionary clinics. They do like the Camino and the Kiva, chocolates and things of that nature. A home brand, Happy Valley from Massachusetts, they almost swept first place for a lot of categories in high times, and they're mom and pop, place in Massachusetts. So as soon as the employment, rate will rise in Ohio once rec comes, and there'll be more, people with, wealth trying to get into the industry and make this work with the provisional license. Because, to be honest, it takes a lot more, money to get, medical than it does to get retail going. If you get medical going, like in Mass, you can't be considered medical unless you have a grow. You have to have that vertically integrated license. Now, once rec comes around, you could just, could have one of these, business moguls be like, yeah, I want to invest in a license retail. I'll wait the year or two to go kind of pan that out. Then you'll have more people that will be like, hey, I want to do it. All right, mom and pop vertical integrated, because now everything's affected. So now that all the states have developed the way that is the journalism and actually the media will become more important because it'll almost be like, you're like, oh, and in Ohio is going to be winning X amount all the time. Hey, and that's what you want to see. You want to see mom and pop success at every level, and like that, eventually these home brands then can become, if they choose to be MSOs, then they can have the power and say to go. But I think the most important thing is you kind of max out your license capability and have that brand going in your home state. Stay there and you kill it to keep these MSOs from media standpoint.
I'm 24 years in medical cannabis industry here in California. Tried to convert over to the recreational side of everything, and having witnessed this onslaught for the last 5 years now, and for me 6 because almost 7 because early on in Trinity County, we tried to, as a community, establish a regulatory system for ourselves during medical cannabis times. So I've voluntarily been paying into this program and here we are 5 years down the road, and I am further away from getting a license to cultivate cannabis than I ever freaking was. I'm a huge proponent of medical cannabis because when you are dealing with medical cannabis, you have an inherent right. You have a defense in court. You have these things to protect yourself. I can tell you it's been zero but a nightmare. And in every county that is, yes, a nightmare. Every county. Did you mean to mute me? Okay. But every county that's part of the Emerald Triangle right now, Humboldt, Trinity, and Mendocino, are suffering from internal corruption and the most blatant disregard for a community and its constituents. And I'm not just talking about the cannabis cultivators. Every store in my town says the onslaught of this freaking recreational industry has been down 70%. Now, and scratching my head, and I only really enter this conversation because of the lack of media presence, the lack of media education about what's been going on with the heritage farmers that have made this possible for everybody else. It is ridiculous. And if the media needs to get into this, they need to get into the corruption that's happening on a county level. And if it's corrupt on a county level, you can believe me, it's corrupt on a state level as well. So when you go and talk about recreational cannabis, you were talking about Pandora's box. You know what freaking hit you and how it hit. Because I was halfway for it. But seeing the way things have panned out for all the legacy cultivators and farmers and purveyors of medical cannabis for the last, I don't know how many decades here in California, it's been a complete onslaught. And there's no media coverage of it. There's no people up in arms. There's nobody protecting the small mom and pops. So I just forewarning of wishes for recreational cannabis. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Stephen. We appreciate that. And of course, here in Ohio, we don't have adult use or recreational cannabis yet. So that is not a conversation for Ohio, but it is a bigger conversation as we move forward into that potential down the road here.
Keep it medical if you can. That's my suggestion.
Yeah,
because it's no good.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate, your contribution there, Stephen. And I would like to open it up to some other people, if there's some questions.
And I would just go on to say that I think, our media plays a major role in disseminating information, as we see all the time. And I think, traditional media do a little bit better at using their platforms and the amount of money that they have. And I think when it comes to cannabis, what's holding us back is obviously the federal level. But they're starting to do more and more reporting on cannabis. But the fact is they're not seeing it as a major industry. Cannabis is going to be a major industry and a major player. When you talk about oil and gas and real estate, cannabis is going to be up there because it's impacting everything. It impacts medicine, healthcare. It impacts, cars. It impacts real estate. It impacts all these things. And so, nobody's really paying attention to it. And then all of a sudden people want to catch on. But, cannabis is a large, massive thing, And so when it comes to media, media plays an essential role in disseminating information, but also, doing the investigative research, getting the stories of people. We have so many people that have been hidden because of cannabis, and afraid to have an authentic conversation. I know I was, and, I talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people didn't know that I consumed. A lot of people, when they found out that I consumed, they were taken aback and surprised. And it was like, I've been consuming for, almost 10 years now, and it's helped me do everything that I'm doing, at a very, great level. But once I was able to feel comfortable and confident sharing my story, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, I still get backlash. I still get people like, why would you talk about that on this platform? But I understand my purpose and my conviction in it. I understand that cannabis is helping so many people and it's helping myself. And so I just want to get that to as many people as possible because, again, we don't know how long we're going to be on this earth. So why would I hold all this knowledge, information, research, and things that I have internally because of something externally, right? A lot of people are afraid of man-made laws. Well, laws change every single day. So why aren't we on the disruptive side of saying, hey, let's be the good force for good and saying we know people need this. Why not scream as loud as we can, especially in the times that we're living in? People are depressed. People don't have money. People don't have food. Well, guess what? Cannabis provides money. Cannabis can provide food. Cannabis can provide health and wellness. It can create jobs. So when you really see the good that it's going to do and is doing, we need to be more adamant as people that are willing to use our voices, whether it's written word, vocal, or, on Instagram or TikTok, because everybody's receiving the information differently. You have different demographics. Older population might want the news or might want the newspaper. You have younger demographic that may get their stuff from TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. And so we also have to understand there's a different generational gap that we're dealing with too, because once you become 18 and you're 18 to 60 or 70, and now we're all dealing with some of the same issues, but there's a huge gap culturally that, well, you just want to be on TikTok. Well, TikTok can be used for educational purposes. It doesn't have to be entertainment. Same thing with Instagram. Instagram should be used more for educational purposes, but obviously the algorithms, right? They're pushing the algorithm to get quick hits, dopamine hits. So we're only going to show you entertainment. But when you see these platforms should be used as educational platforms, tools to disseminate information and to help people make better, more well-rounded decisions and hear stories that we typically don't hear because traditional media costs money. If you don't have money to get on the news or a platform, typically it's not going to happen. My wife works in the news. I understand how the news works a good bit. Traditional news for papers, same thing, and then not everybody understands how media works. Not everybody understands you can write the editor and tell them that you have a story that you want them to share. A lot of people live in fear. And that's one of the reasons that I created my platforms, was because I saw how fearful so many people were of just being on camera or speaking up or using their voice. And so for me, I figured if I could use my voice in this capacity, especially in cannabis, I figured it could help people. And we've heard time and time again from Ohio Cannabis Report how our platform is helping other people start their own platform, whether it's a podcast or their own Instagram page, or just sharing their voice a lot more vocally. And so I think that's what media can really do. And oftentimes we demonize forms of media. My wife is a classically trained, college-educated journalist. I am not. So I like to have my conversation long form, very unscripted. My wife is produced. As a producer, she has multiple producers. She has multiple camera people. She has hair and makeup. She has a stylist. All these different things. And so we have to understand that there's different levels, but they all matter. And now we're seeing that new media is overtaking old media because of generational things. Younger kids aren't watching news media. The generational gaps is something that we have to really talk about, because I think those are the things that are really separating us at this stage, is the generational gaps that we've created, where we can add value to, I can add value to somebody who's younger than me and older than me, especially when it comes to technology. I worked at Verizon for a few years, and I saw how afraid our older generation was of even touching an iPhone, of even touching email. But these are the people that control politics. They control a lot of the levers in society because they're involved, where it may impact the younger generation. Our voices aren't being heard. We don't have the money, but we have the numbers. But we don't know how to use our voice. And we use it on social media, but we don't know. We got to go to the politicians and talk to the politicians. And, so I think social media and media in general can do a better job, more inclusive, but also uplifting these stories, how it's really impacting people, building economies, and
I could not have said it better myself, Gerald. Wow, thank you. That really sums up a lot of why cannabis and why writing about it and creating content about it and doing so in our own individual unique ways is so important. As we advance our knowledge of this plant, everybody needs to learn about it, right? And and then everybody needs to learn about it in different ways. And especially as people of my generation become dinosaurs and gives way to new media like TikTok and Snapchat and some of these other platforms that where people will be getting their media in the future. That's why it's so important for us to continue to teach the basics so that the tools of the future will be more of what they can utilize, but then still have that knowledge. Where we talk about things like media bias. One of the things that we see at MedicateOH and one of the things that we teach in our writers workshop is learning about media bias and learning about newsworthiness and learning about the types of writing that that we do, but then also the different types of content that exist, from podcasts to YouTube and some of the things that we featured tonight. With Anthony with Ohio Cannabis Live, and then also Gerald and Broderick with their Ohio Cannabis Report. Being media savvy is becoming so important as a life navigation tool, especially as we're really bombarded by all these stories we see in the news media all the time. We hope, as we close tonight, let me actually ask it, are there any other questions? I did see Jody come up.
Yeah, it was just Jared had me going there. I related with that, and my atmosphere coming from my lane, I think what he's saying there was all important to the people that we can influence, and to use that in a way that can represent that crowd. I'm within the church base, most recently, but I came out of the alleys many years ago because that's where that plant had drove us, because we had to do it in dark and in secret. And so through my growth and life and stuff, I've got myself pulled out of those alleys, so to speak, and that dark cell that cannabis plant maybe do into the areas that they never really intended to get to. I'm over here, okay, just bring me over here to most recent. That's where Gerald had that potential to minister to people, and that's what he was doing. And that's now I'm in that church base and using the cannabis plant on the hemp hemp part of it. It's been such a help for me. And I had to go in this in a way of studying it, because I had to myself worthy, because I was going to bring a plant into this community that I'm in that wasn't maybe known to understand it and stuff like that. So I was a student of the plant and then the science and stuff like that. And as I've evolved, I've become a cultivator to this day here in Ohio. So I grow for the cannabinoids and for the terpenes, and I study and I love and care for that type of plant. And then to bring that into how the church and that type of segment I'm most influential in my hometown. Over the 7 years I've been in the industry, I've got the pastors and the organizations, and I've got over 300 customers that have actually worked with me, and the pastors are saying, come in and teach us. Set our people free. What do you know about the plant? So, and I understand and I support the THC of it, and the synergy effects and how to do the maybe microdose, and it's about the intent of it. So I appreciate that he just sort of that up, and that's sort of why I jumped up here. Thank you. I missed most of the room, but check in later.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jody. And that does bring me to a good segue that Jody will be one of our guests on the next podcast, on the next Clubhouse, which will be on the topic of hemp in the cannabis industry. So we are delighted to be having him back on for that. And I thank you all for joining us tonight. If there's not any other questions, I don't see any. We will go ahead and sign off for this evening. And please feel free to follow up. Gerald and Broderick are on Ohio Cannabis Report, and they've left some details in the chat. And also Anthony Riley, Ohio Cannabis Live, also left some details in the chat. And we are always all looking for new talents. So if you or someone you know may be interested, by all means, please reach out to us. We are always looking for new people who want to create content on our various platforms. So thank you again, and thank you to Bonnie and to the UC students and to everyone who's joined us tonight. And we will be back here on 3-2 to talk about hemp, and we will see you all then. Thank you.